Hi guys, I'm Maria Druska and this is our weekly news digest. The undisputed headlines of this week are of course the drone attack on Moscow and the liberation of the city of Shebekina from Putin's regime. And we will start with this news. Tuesday, May 30, proved to be unexpectedly explosive in Moscow. Unidentified drones, which can obviously be purchased in any military or hardware store, flew to Moscow and Moscow region. As eyewitnesses note, explosions were heard from the morning as the Russian air defense system started responding. The unknown attackers targeted this Russian Death Star with barraging ammunition with a relatively small warhead, so significant damage was not caused. The drones, to overcome the enemy air defense zone, flew at a low altitude, which led to several hits on civilian buildings. Because the warhead is small, there are no casualties among the civilian population, and despite what Putin and the Kremlin say, such actions greatly demoralized the Russians and also helped to scout the locations of enemy air defenses. But I guess we will never know who did it. Guys, it would be amazing if you subscribe to my channel, like the video and share it with your friends. It would help me a lot as I can reach a wider audience to share these updates with. Unknown good Russians have once again entered the territory temporarily occupied by Putin's regime in the Belgorod People's Republic. As far as we know now, the Russian Volunteer Corps fighters and the Freedom of Russia Legion are currently fighting in the suburbs of the city of Shebekina, and artillery duel is underway. Now, in the photo, you see the monocrystal factory, which produces synthetic subfuels for electronics and optics. The really good news, the factory is burning. That's another billion-dollar hole in the Russian budget would, if all goes up in smoke, and we know Russians and their smoking accidents, don't we? In case you've been living under a rock, this is Viktor Orban, Hungary's prime minister and no stranger to pro-Russian positions. True, all of this is aimed at domestic consumption and Russia to get gas cheaper, which, by the way, he currently has to pay more for to Russia. Anyway, Orban wants to stop the Ukrainian advance because the advancing side always suffers great losses. How touching! Strange though, he hasn't spared a thought for the temporarily occupied territories or asked Russia to call back their troops. And just to jog your memory, when the full-scale invasion kicked out, Hungarian troops were just moved to the border right next to Zakarpattia region. I'm sure you can join the dots. The funny thing is, ordinary Hungarians support us, but my favorite human being continues with his populism. Just don't forget about this. And again, Russia is on the receiving end. I will never stop enjoying this kind of news. Overnight at the Afipsky Oil Refinery in the Krasnodar territory of the Russian Federation, there was an explosion. The primary cause of the fire, drone arrival, but of course one can never rule out smoking accidents. They say the fire covered 100 square meters of the enterprise. No casualties were reported as a result of the explosion. It is noted that the explosion could be heard several kilometers away. This oil refinery is located 15 kilometers from Krasnodar. The destruction of enemy fuel supplies stops equipment and greatly assists the advancing army. Don't forget about this. Then, without wanting to make Berdyansk feel left out, there were further reports of drone attacks there. The Ukrainian defense forces targeted the seaport of Berdyansk, which the occupiers used as a logistics hub for the delivery of ammunition and other military equipment by the sea. Judging by the video published by the Russians, one can assume that the missiles penetrated through the enemy's air defense system and reached the port. Really, what Russian defense doing? The funny thing in this situation is that Russian occupation administration stated there were no casualties, but almost immediately several ambulances were dispatched to the port. Most of the strikes on Russian facilities in the occupied territories are beyond the range of already familiar to the armed forces of Ukraine modern Western systems, for example, HIMARS. That's why it's likely they brought out the recently received Storm Shadow air-to-surface missiles for the occasion. As I said, storms are here. This news is for our allies, who by giving us long-range missile system have allowed us to target the Russian army from much further back and help those same Russians in the demilitarization of their forces. For example, Ukraine is being transferred AIM-7 air-to-air missiles with radar guidance for the first time. The exact purpose of these missiles in the future batch is unknown, and the Ukrainian armed forces do not have any aircraft capable of firing the MIM-7 Sparrow. It will not be possible to adapt them to Ukrainian fighters and attack aircraft by analogy with HARM and Storm Shadow. When launched, this missile interact with the aircraft's onboard electronic equipment. But who knows, maybe we will soon have aircraft with which these missiles can be used. To wrap up, here's a zinger from the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The Kremlin often boasted about having the world's second most powerful army. A lot of people bought it. Today, the Russian army is the second most powerful in Ukraine. I disagree with you, Secretary Blinken. You forgot the tractor army of Ukraine. See you in the next videos. Slava Ukraini!